Children's toys to nuclear weapons, semiconductor chips play a major role in powering our society. And as we all learned during the pandemic, they've become a precious resource driving so many of the gadgets that run our lives.
Thanks very much, Glenn.
Quote that Bob Noyce, our founder, said almost 30 years ago.
It's interesting to me to see what an enormous amount of publicity the microchip has gotten recently.
Don't be encumbered by history. Go out and create something wonderful.
Microchips are all around us. They power our lives. And yet, most people don't really know how they work. Why is this? And can we relate it to the pyramids?
I can report to you that Apple's ready too.
Oh, that's good.
I think technology is an incredibly bizarre part of our lives. We have it all around us, and yet most of us don't really know how it works. Most assume it should just work and don't really bother with the inner mechanisms that allow it to do so, me included. Sure, it makes for an interesting comment over the dinner table now and then. You hear something along the lines of, "Isn't it just amazing? I can talk to my daughter from the other side of the world." It's not just amazing, it's unbelievable. I mean, only 15 years ago, smartphones were hardly a thing. Today, it's the device we all hold right in our pockets, because we're used to it. But if you show this gadget to someone from 50 years ago, it would blow their mind. Now, imagine showing it to someone from 500 years ago. They'd probably either praise you as an incarnation of God or accuse you of witchcraft and burn you alive. I mean, I know which one I prefer. The point is, the technology we have access to today is remarkable. We should all know that. But most of us don't really know what drives it. So what does? Microchips are the foundation of our technology. Whether it's your phone, laptop, washing machine, or even fridge. All the devices we have around us today are powered by these wonderful devices called microchips. These tiny rectangles of silicon have circuits embossed onto them, circuits which, as electricity flows through them, give rise to all the actions and reactions required to run these machines. For a long time, I thought I understood the role of microchips. I've built several computers and thought I could sort of understand what most of the parts were designed to do. But if you ask me exactly how they did them, I wouldn't actually know. This is an example of abstraction. Abstraction is a concept used extensively in computer science, although it's actually quite a simple idea. Abstraction allows objects and systems to be used without knowing exactly how they work. You can drive a car without knowing how an engine works. That is abstraction. Abstraction is undoubtedly an important thing. A lot of things out there are very complicated, and it's just not necessary for everyone to know exactly how they work just to use them. However, I think it's very important that enough people do understand how these things work, as too much abstraction over too many years can lead to a general loss of understanding. The worst scenario is that we actually forget how we made such things and stop being able to replicate them. This has happened several times in history. Just look at the pyramids. The Great Pyramid of Giza contains 2.3 million individual blocks of stone. Mainstream Egyptologists say it took about 20 years to build, which, if this is true, means a block must have been laid once every 5 minutes, every hour of the day, every day of the year, for 20 years straight. Given each block can weigh up to 40 tons, this seems a near impossible task. The Egyptologists talk about things like mechanical advantage and leverage, but I don't know if I'm convinced. The point is, for a long time in history, we had no idea how they built the pyramids. That information had been lost. Even today, there are people like Graham Hancock who say the Egyptians did not actually build the Great Pyramids.
I don't know how they did it. All I know is they did it. I don't think anybody knows how they did it, how they lifted those stones, how they brought them up to that level. I think we're looking, again, at a lost technology.
Whether or not this is true, it just goes to show, even today, there are still questions about how these things were built. We are so used to science and technology always moving forwards, always growing. This is not always the case. Over thousands of years, science and technology have moved both forwards and backwards. Although we believe now we have very little lost knowledge, there have been points in history where people were in awe of what their ancestors were able to achieve. Now, I won't pretend to be a historian, but other than the pyramids, a great example is the fall of Rome. When the Roman Empire collapsed, much of their infrastructure was still in place, but no one knew how to replicate it. This included the famed aqueducts, which took the idea of the bridge in reverse, allowing water to flow over ditches and valleys in the land. On the more theoretical side, most of the algorithms used by the Romans to calculate bearable loads were lost. We know that the Romans must have had some form of exact mathematics to plan their buildings, but doing that with Roman numerals, we just don't know how they did it. That information has been lost. It was only when Newton, Leibniz and Descartes invented modern day calculus and geometry that we got back to that level of understanding again, several centuries later. There's a reason the 15th and 16th centuries in Italy are known as the Renaissance. It's French for rebirth, because it was the time when a lot of science and technology was invented or discovered, or should we say reinvented and rediscovered, because it's likely that it all existed before. So what am I trying to get at with all of this? Whether it's climate change, wars, diseases, the stray meteor strike, there is always the possibility that something can halt the growth of science and technology. I believe it's imperative that our science, technology and information always exist for future generations. Preservation aside, I believe we should make the most of what we've invented whilst we have it. If something terrible does happen, a great reset, we may never get the opportunity again.